Your turn to ban. 5 seconds remaining. Ten seconds remaining. 5 seconds remaining. 5 seconds remaining.
Scenario. What would God want you to do? Tell the truth. You'd be amazed how far just telling the truth will get you. In any situation, I can give you benign situations that don't even matter. Your girlfriend caught you. Oh, and no, and I barely know. Barely know her. Just say yes. Sorry. I love you. I'd love to stay together. Well, you did this. Sorry. I'm leaving. Okay, goodbye. Next day she's back. You just tell the truth. It could have gone on for weeks. She could have kept spying. She could have called the girl. All this drama. Just sometimes in life, you just man up and tell the truth. That's why in my current scenario, and I was saying earlier,
that's the only way you're free, by the way.
Yeah, completely.
Only way you're
Truth
free.
shall set you free.
It shall set you free. When I was saying earlier, the incompetence of my enemies is scaring me, and I don't know exactly what to do. All I can do is just tell the truth all the time. I'm going to tell the truth all the time. I'm going to say what I mean and mean what I say, and I'm going to tell the truth, and that's who I'm going to be. That's what I think is the best thing for me to do in the current scenario. But we're not even instilling that in children anymore. We're not even telling children how important it is to not lie.
Well, but that's also part of what you're talking about. I want to show you the stat because a guy sent it to me, and then we'll put this for the audience to see as well. Percentage of gun ownership from 1972 till today. Same thing.
Exactly.
If you look at the numbers, pretty much the same thing. So what's been the biggest difference is a lot of these things that we just talked about. By the way, that question you asked from 1950 till today, the candidate that's talking about this, again, I went back to politics, RFK is talking about this. Yeah. And I think it's a very important thing to talk about because it's making people go research and see for themselves and to ask the question, what really did change?
Completely.
We've had this all the time.
Completely.
What became legal? Why are we adding all these pharmaceuticals to, kiss the Tate?
Yeah.
What else would it be outside of that? So that was the foundation, which I agree with you. Household values, principles, kids, men, raising them better.
Yeah.
What else would you see as a challenge from an outside? And then I got part two of the question for you.
Yeah, it's
anything else where you say, XYZ would also, by the way, I love the way you say Nissan and status. I just love the way you pronounce those two words, man. For a second you said Nissan, I'm like, what is Nissan? And then I realized what you're talking about.
Well, I remember when I was young, other people's parents would tell me off. Do you remember that? Did you ever get that when you were young?
Of course.
Other people's parents would come up and you better not. Random adults would just tell me off. I was scared of every grown-up. Every grown-up had a degree of authority. Just random adults. We can't do that anymore. There was just a degree of community that's certainly not really lost. And asking me how to bring it back is difficult. It's very hard. And that's one of the reasons why I've become so religious recently, because I think that God is definitely part of that. And that's also the reason I want to live in the clan I live in. That's why it is. My brother can tell my kids off, no problem. If I came home and Tristan's like, I just scream it all, I'll be like, good. I trust him in his judgment. Good. Scream at him then. Good for children. Also, sometimes, you know what? Kids need to be yelled at sometimes. Why not yell at them? What are they going to do? So, life's hard. Life's hard. The way we pander and baby children, especially, is insane. I was talking about this the other day. I was talking about how I have a pet peeve, and one of my pet peeves is painkillers. And I was being typical me, and I was going over the top. But I was saying, I was not arguing, I was discussing with this guy. This guy said, have you got any aspirin? I said, there's no aspirin in my house. And he said, why? I said, brother, you are not facing 1% of the life difficulties I am facing. Think about it. No government's trying to lock you up. The Matrix isn't after you. They're not trying to frame you. Nobody wants you dead. When God finally gives you a tiny headache to give you something, to show you're half a man, a little bit of resilience. You pussy out and take an aspirin. Can't you just have a headache? Just have a headache. And not only just have a headache and don't mention it, because I don't care. So don't even talk about it. Nobody needs to know. Just have a headache and be quiet.
I have a headache, Twitter.
Yeah. What do you want? You want therapy? You want sympathy? Nobody cares you have a headache. Shut up. It kind of goes back into my original conversation when I was saying I don't like psychotherapists and all their garbage, because they're constantly, I don't believe in, I've had conversations with therapists a few times, and my biggest detractors and enemies say, you need to talk to a therapist. The last conversation I had with a therapist didn't go very well. I said I didn't believe in most of their field and that it was garbage. And she said, why? And I said, because there are some boys who don't drink alcohol because their dad was an alcoholic, and there are some boys who are alcoholics because their dad was an alcoholic. You have the same scenario and different outcomes. So I don't believe in it. And she said, well, no, it's not an exact science, but we have generalized rules that we can follow that lead to patterns of behavior. I said, but I'm not a generalized person. I'm an exceptional person. So everything you've learned and everyone you've ever spoken to and everything in your books does not apply to me, because I'm exceptional and I'm smarter than you and I've done things you could never do, and I'm a world champion athlete and I'm richer than you'll ever be. So nothing you know can possibly apply to my mindset. So why are we sitting here talking?
What was the reaction?
She just wrote things down on a piece of paper. Probably called me an arrogant piece of shit. Probably said don't like this guy.
Complete narcissist,
Yeah, 100%,
egomaniac,
100%.
who knows what's going on
But
here.
I'm right.
Yeah.
There's nothing you've learned in your
You are
book that
exceptional.
applies to people. It doesn't apply to me. Doesn't apply to me. So I don't want to hear it. Don't care. Don't care. And this whole idea, this goes back to the thing about painkillers. That's something I didn't just make up. That's from my dad. I remember being at my friend's house, and I remember him saying I need an aspirin, and he had an aspirin. I remember just being a child and coming home and saying I want an aspirin. I remember my dad going, "For what? You're a kid. Shut up. No, you're not popping pills." And I remember my mother going, "It's only an aspirin." No, there's nothing wrong with you. Your body is going to go through the same damage and suffering, if any at all, whether you feel the pain or not. Man up, get over it. It comes down to the details. It's like if you're a professional fighter and you get to a certain level, your coach, once you've been training for 10 years, your coach is honing you on the details. It's the tiniest details that make you a predator. The tiny things. Mayweather does 1% better than the guy he beats. It's the tiny details. So simple things like denying a child a painkiller when you know there's nothing wrong with him. I'm not saying if he had surgery, you can't have painkillers. I'm saying if he walks in, there's nothing actually wrong with the kid. Say no. It's all the tiny little things you need to do to instill pain, you need to instill that resilience inside of them. I was in jail, and I could just hear crying and sobbing from every cell but mine. Everyone's in there having a mental breakdown, but me. And the scariest thing about my position, and I think it's the position for most people who end up in jail in Romania, because of how the legal system works and the extensions, and you don't know how long you're in there for. You don't know. It could be a year, could be 5, could be 3 days. That's what messes with your brain. You're like, do I prepare for 6 months of this? Do I prepare for 5 years of this? What's going on? Nobody knows. Everyone's in there having mental breakdowns but me. Why did I not have a mental breakdown? Because I've had too much crap happen to me too many times and never took the painkiller, never took the easy way out, never asked for the therapist, never been a bitch about it. This is how life works. There's no way to the top besides the difficulty and the pain and the trauma. I'm really flabbergasted that there's men out here who still believe they're going to somehow become something of importance without it. Of course she broke your heart. Good, good, good. Good. I'm tired of people complaining and crying about it. That's the game. That's the life. So yeah, it comes down to tiny things, even down to painkillers, smallest things. Another thing my dad used to make me do. He used to just make me drink water. I remember being a kid and it would upset me. I'd be sitting there playing chess, whatever. He'd say, go drink 2 liters of water. And I'd go and I'd get some water and I'd start drinking it. I'd say, I'm not thirsty, I don't want to drink the rest. And he'd stand there and make me drink all 2 liters. Now I understand it was just compliance. 2 liters of water is not going to hurt me. Not going to hurt me. Do I really need it? Who knows? I drank a liter. Why do I have to drink all 2? Because he said so. That was the household. If I tried to rebel, I really don't want it, I'm not thirsty, you're going to drink that water. That's it. And there's all these tiny things that instill discipline in you. Over a long enough time frame, drink water. Yes, sir.
Bring that to compliance today, though. Bring that to compliance today. Say your dad is around today,
Yep.
and you're 12 years old,
Yep.
and you're living in Ohio,
Yep.
okay? And your dad is teaching you compliance.
Yep.
And your dad says, okay, so now teacher in school tells you what to do. He's right, he's this, he's that. What is the angle you're taking at that time?
Yeah, and that's another thing that's difficult, because back then it was much easier to say you shouldn't get in trouble at school.
Right.
Much easier than
Today
it
it's
is now.
kind of like a badge of honor almost.
Almost.
You stand up.
Almost. And it is hard. But my loyalty was always to my last name above anything else. It just depends where your loyalty lies. I think that everyone, when we talk about, if you link back into religion and talk about atheists, I don't think there's such thing as an atheist nowadays. I think everyone has a religion. If you're not religious to God, you're religious to either this woke agenda, or you're religious to a political party, or you're religious to some kind of perversion. Everyone's religious to something. You have to decide what is you're most loyal to above everything. You have to put these things in hierarchical order. In our last talk, I said this. A lot of people hold beliefs and they don't know where they got them from or why they hold them. There's people walking around who believe things and they don't know where it came from or why they so strongly believe it. They don't even have any personal experience to link it to. You truly believe 2 + 2 is 5. Why? Oh, because it just is, and the news. No. What happened to you that made you believe? Nothing's even happened to you, and you believe this with your complete core. You've been psyoped. I know where my loyalties lie. I've had them in order. I know who I put above others. I absolutely and utterly know. And sometimes in the most harsh situations on earth, there's going to be scenarios in life which are completely and utterly, they're unexpected and they're exceptionally rare, where you have to make very difficult choices. But I know my hierarchy. I know if I was in a position, a hypothetical, where I had to choose between my brother or my girl, there wouldn't be a, oops, what do I do? I know the choice.
It's never been the case between the two of you?
It's never been the case between us yet. But if it happened, I know it would be. I've had girls say, I've had girls try and give me the line. I've had girls do it. I've had girls say, if you're going to live with your brother, then it's going to be
No,
weird.
it's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is, has a girl ever come in between you guys since you were kids? Never.
It's impossible.
That's because of the value taught down.
Completely. It's absolutely impossible.
So the hierarchy of compliance and respect, at that time, last name was first. Where would it be today? If you're raising kids today, what is number one? Is it God?
It is God.
Is it me second? Then who?
No, it is God. It's God first, and then it's the last name and the legacy in my teachings. I think it has to be God first. I think it has to be God first because God is the only thing that can resist this insanity. What is happening is truly evil. This is not some different worldview. No, it is evil because it is dishonest. Anything that is dishonest must be evil. It is a lie. All of it is a lie. It is constructed deliberately to be a lie. It's deliberately constructed to alter the minds of people to believe in lies. It is evil. So it has to be God first because God is truth. And I believe if I have children who put God first and then put respect for the last name and the things I've taught them second, it's very hard to corrupt them. How are you going to truly corrupt these people? It's going to be very difficult. And that's what I always try and do. And that's how I was raised. I was raised in a Christian family. I was actually raised religiously. Then I thought I was smart when I became atheistic. Because, there's a lot wrong with the world. And obviously, I've already apologized for that and understand I was completely wrong. But respect for my last name, even to this day, is still there. And that's why I say to my girlfriend, if we were walking down the street and 10 men approached with machetes, I'd just have to die. I can't be Andrew Tate ran away. I just can't. I can't be Andrew Tate ran away. I can't do it. That's the bottom line.
If you're living in this clan, right? You're living here, your family, Tristan's family, you're raising your family. Muslims, Islam. Your brother's still Christian. How's that going to work?
Well, there's one God.
God's first.
There's one God. I truly believe there's different paths to God. I truly believe that. Like I said, I'm not a religious scholar, but it says in the Quran, people of the book. Even as a Muslim man, I'm allowed to marry a Christian woman. They are of the book. It's only atheists that the Quran has a problem with, because there's something morally corrupt with them. But if you're a person of the book, a person of faith, we're not even says inside the Quran we're not supposed to convert you or insult you. We're not here to insult you or correct you. There's one path. There's different paths to the one God. I truly believe that. And another thing I'll say about clan living, in my experience, I think that men quite often get along in those scenarios. If anyone is hearing the idea of this and love the idea of this, but they feel like it would be argumentative or there'd be problems, I think that comes from the womb. I think it's when women don't like each other, or the woman's in the man's ear. You're too much with the guys. I think the women are more against it than the men for some reason, unless you have a very strong frame in the relationship. I don't have that problem, but in general, the men get along. The men love it. I think it's quite firm and quite rigidly installed inside of the basic psyche of men. We like that. Men feel best in a gang, in a group. It's why we charge at the gunfire. When we're with our boys, it's when we feel strongest. It's why we go out and drink and party when you're with your guys. There's something inside of you just feel like on fire. I think men have that. A lot of the time it doesn't seem to work and it breaks down because women can be unhappy in certain scenarios. But this is why, especially in some ethnic communities where the gender roles are more specific and defined, where the man is in charge and the woman does this, they can all live together in peace. It's much easier for them. Like I said, I grew up in a town full of Muslims. They'd have 10 families in one house. Women cooked, cleaned, looked after the children, looked after their man. The men all worked, made a bunch of money, a bunch of average-ass jobs, and they were all millionaires in 5 to 6 years.
So let me ask this other question while we're on this topic. That was a good question, by the way, Christian dynamic and Muslim dynamic. When you're saying there's a lot of ways to get there, you know, there's a religion called Baha'i. It's an element of Muslim. Baha'i is like how Mormonism to Christianity, and Baha'i believes there's 8 ways to go to heaven. That's the philosophy of Baha'i. My sister, her husband's family, they're all Baha'i, great people. But going back to this, okay, impact. Let's think impact. If a person's watching this content, most of the people that are watching this, a portion is going to be those that are haters, that just want to find, like, poke at the argument to find, you see, I told you, fine. But a lot of people that are also watching this, they're probably wanting to make impact. They want their life to have meaning behind it. That's who's watching this show today, right? Okay, so I can't be a president, but I want to make impact. I being anybody that's watching this. Because Putin says 8 years, another guy comes, or the guy with the briefcase shows up, okay, cool. Well, if you were in the States and you're saying president wouldn't be how to make an impact, but let's say there is a kid who's 20 years old, 18 years old, 25 years old, has so much drive, it's unbelievable. Yeah. Ambition at the highest level. Who do you think has the biggest influence to make positive change, like real change? Is it the person with the money? Is it the person with the biggest mic? Is it the person that goes into politics? What is the best way to have the biggest impact?
Yeah, so I think the world has always only ever been a battle for influence. Even if you look at the current battlefield, Ukraine is next door, it's 5 hours drive away. The battle in Ukraine is not just about tanks and trenches and grenades. It's a battle for influence. Who influences the people within this territory? Who is in charge of the thinking, the language, the mindset of people within this geographical area? Every single battle, every single pitched battle, every single argument, every single debate has always been a battle for influence. If you have influence, you're an extremely powerful person. All of us here are some of the most powerful people in the world. How many millions of people listen to us? We have massive influence. And I think you can have influence at the ground level. You don't have to be a famous podcaster or famously well-known to have influence. I would argue that those Romanian grandmas who gave me my food will remember me for the rest of their lives. I would like to believe I gave a positive influence and a positive impact on their lives for the rest of their life. I believe if you go through life and you're genuinely a good person, and you try your best to be good to people, and you're honest, and you shake hands, and you don't lie, and you're on time, and you work hard, and you're good to everyone who's good to you, I think you'll have a massive influence. And I also believe, I truly believe that God is extremely giving. There's the saying, goes around, comes around. Completely true. But I would say it comes from God. God is keeping an eye on you, and he's paying attention to you, and he knows the kind of person you are and the kind of things you do. And I don't believe if you're actually genuinely a good person all of the time, that you're not going to get some goodwill back to you. Look at my scenario. If I was being a piece of shit for years with all these chicks, I'd be in jail. I'd be in jail. I could have never seen this coming. But the fact I was nice, paid their taxi home, bought them food, looked after them. Are you okay? I know we broke up. I'm sorry. I know it hurts. I just did it. I was nice about all of it. Here I am. I'm fine. And so I could have never seen this Matrix attack coming. It's amazing how what goes around comes around. It's truly amazing. If you're good to people, if you're generous to people, if you're helpful to people, you'd be amazed how much influence you can build up. I say this to people all the time. I don't think if you're a hardworking person who is honest, who shakes hands, who tries to learn, who does what they're supposed to do, who has a good heart, that you're truly, really not going to be able to get what you want. I think the universe is absolutely and utterly giving. When I see somebody who says they want something and they don't have it, I don't even think they truly even want it. You can have anything you want in the world. When a guy goes, I want a six-pack, then why ain't got one? If you wanted it, you have it. You'd like it. There's a bunch of things I'd like that I don't have. But I don't want them. Everything I've ever wanted, I've got. I've never wanted something and not had it. We all know what we're talking about here. There's things we'd like. I'd like to be able to figure skate. Not enough to go learn to figure skate.
It's a weird look if you figure out, although that other guy dancing like the way you dance is doing a pretty good job.
Bottom G.
Bottom G, yeah.
You've seen this guy?
He can figure skate.
That guy kills the dance moves.
Yeah, he's good. But
your doppelganger.
But if you truly want something, you're going to absolutely not have it. So when it comes down to influence, I think you start at the base level, at the grassroots level.
What if this guy's got, like, you know, for example, like, you know how when you were 20, Were you this driven?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so when you're 20, who did you look at and say, I can do it as good as him, if not better?
My coach, because I wanted to fight, and he used to beat me badly. Everyone used to beat me up when I was young, and I wanted to be the best, so I used to go to the fight championship.
Okay, how about communication? Who'd you look at? Were you always a good communicator? I can see you being a great communicator since you were 14 years old.
I was pretty good, yeah.
Okay, who did you look at and say, that guy's good, but I think I can, do it better?
That's a good question. And I think that
you know what I'm asking.
I know what you're asking. I don't know if there's one particular person I took nuances from, because when you're a great communicator, you know how to be serious, and you know how to make people sad and angry, and you also know how to make people laugh. There's different people who can do lots of different things.
Who was that? Was it somebody that was multifaceted like that?
I think it was a lot of different people, and I also think that...
Did you pull from comedy as well, or no?
Certainly did, but I was also extremely self-critical. I think that's where a lot of it comes from. I'll watch this podcast back 15 times. I will notice every single time I make a mistake. Just then I said I'll watch twice. That was a mistake. I will watch this back 15 times and I'll identify every single error. I have an email list and I sign up and I get words of the day. I get 5 or 6 new words a day, which I try my very best to memorize. It's harder than you think to memorize 5 words a day, but I always try to make sure I have the most interesting vernacular I can possibly have, a wide vocabulary, so I can be very specific with my points. The reason I actually did that, I keep talking about my dad, but I'm his son. I have the same name, Emory Andrew Tate III. He was Emory Andrew Tate II. My father was a linguist for the CIA. He spoke Russian and German and Spanish and English. And I think I've told this before. Back then, when they needed someone who spoke Russian, they would take a Native American and teach them Russian. Nowadays, we have a bunch of Russian-speaking allies. You can go to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. They're all NATO and just get a Russian speaker. Back then, they taught my dad Russian, and he held the Air Force record for the fastest assimilation of a foreign language. When he died, a guy sent me an email, sent me a message saying, you don't know who I am, but I worked with your father in the Air Force, and he had the fastest assimilation. He learned Russian in 2 weeks. Crazy. And I remember saying to my dad, will you teach me Russian? He said, boy, you don't even know English. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you don't even know English. And once he sat me down with a dictionary, I was like, you're right. I don't even know English. That's why I've lived in Romania 7 years. People say, why don't you speak Romanian? Because I don't know English yet. I need to finish the first job before I learn the second. I don't know English. There's a bunch of words I don't know. I can't speak how he spoke. So I don't have time for a second language.
Yeah.
Also, another thing I found really interesting, Putin speaks English. Have you ever heard him speak English? No. Because if you want to speak to Putin, you speak to him in his language. You speak to me in Russian. And I reply to you in Russian to you. I cannot be misunderstood or misconstrued. I don't make a fool of myself. You can't get me on some vernacular trick. I speak my language, and I also prefer that also. I speak English, that's what I speak. If you want to speak to me, you speak to me in my language, so I will win the debate always.
Who do you look up to outside of your dad?
I look up to lots of people.
I'm talking specifically youngerish, not today. I'm talking 16, 20, 25, that age. Not today.
It's a good question. Because I always believed in trying to take the best parts of individual people and then amalgamate them. And I know you want a name, and I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I would look at people who I didn't even respect, but they'd have one particular thing about them. I thought, that's good. It could be somebody I didn't even like, but he dressed well. I think you just have to be perspicacious and look at people, and there's something you can learn from absolutely everybody. And just try and adapt it all. I'm not saying everybody should be clones of me. For everyone's individual, right? But there might be some things about me they find inspiring that they may adapt and take on board, and then they'll find some things from other people. But learning to speak is something I understood from a very young age how important that would be. That's a superpower.
Okay, so let me go back to the question I was asking, where I'm trying to go with this. So I asked the question, I said, imagine the 20-year-old that's watching this, that's saying, no, Tate, don't give me the answer for anybody can create, can contribute to society. I'm not that guy. Talk to me like I'm one in a million. Talk to me like I'm one in. So if I'm willing to give 20 years, 30 years of my life to one way to go out to make true positive impact in America, my country, in the world, what should, don't talk to me like everybody else. What the standards, what should I do? What angle should I do?
Okay, so first things first, you need to be worthy of respect. And you're going to be worthy of respect through having things which are difficult to acquire. So first things first, the basic things, you need to be very focused on trying to make money, because people listen to you when you have money. They just do. Secondly, you need to be in fantastic physical condition, because when you're in fantastic physical condition, it cannot be bought. It must be earned. And people know that. When you're in, I don't know about you. If someone walked in to sell me something and they were obese, I would not trust them the same as if they were in fantastic physical shape. Because I'd say, I don't think you have dedication and heart. I don't think there's something about you that I just wouldn't trust you the same. So fantastic physical condition and money is the first thing. The second thing, whatever your ideas are, you need to learn how to communicate them. Speaking is a superpower in and of itself. You need to become a fantastic communicator. You need to be comfortable in all realms of communication. You need to be persuasive. You need to be comfortable arguing. You need to be good at debating. There's a lot of people out there in the world who have ideas that they can't even project into somebody else's mind. How are you gonna rule the world with that? How are you gonna get your ideas out there and make an influence if you can't make other people understand exactly what you think? That's the first thing. Second thing, once they understand exactly what you think, you need to make them agree with what you think. These are two different skills. Must be practiced and must be learned. If you're 20 years old and you want to change the world, you need to be having endless debates. Endless. Without resorting to name calling, not on Twitter like a dummy, in person. And you need to come across in a way that people agree with you. We can go back quickly and talk about the red pill. The difference between me, when I talk to girls on these panel shows, and every other guy when we talk to girls on these panel shows is, when I'm done, all the girls want me. Watch them. Watch the shows. I say the same thing, and by the end, the chicks are in love with me, as opposed to saying the same thing and the chicks thinking I'm a dickhead. That's the difference. I project my ideas and I make them agree with my ideas to a point where they're like, texting me afterwards. I'm not saying anything different, it's how I'm communicating it. You can catch more flies with honey than hurting people sometimes. So you need to be good at everything. You need to have a Swiss Army knife of tools. I know when to be intimidating or aggressive. I know when to come across as obtuse. I know when to come across as exceptionally open-minded and easy to understand. I know when to come across as understanding. I know all these things. This all has to be practiced. And a lot of it is, communication. I would say, if you're going to say to a 20-year-old who's truly exceptional and driven, I'd say you need to become a master communicator. Because once you can do that, you can do anything. And that fixes all the other problems, right? You talk about making money. If you're a master communicator, you do fantastic in sales, you'll kill sales. You'll absolutely destroy sales if you're a master communicator. Not many people know this, but I used to sell windows. You know the old school knock on the door? Window sales. I did window sales for 2 or 3 years, and I'd say this is one of the hardest jobs you could possibly do. And I would always recommend a young man if he has some time to waste to go sell windows. And the reason, it's fantastic, because I'll tell you why. It's the hardest one to sell because 1, nobody wants them. 2, they don't know who you are. And 3, even if you convince them that they need windows, after them not knowing who you are, then they go to all your competitors and then it becomes a price war. It's a nightmare. It's the hardest sales job. If you're selling a Lambo, at least they want the Lambo, right? Nobody wants glass and plastic. They already have windows. So you gotta find a way to sell them these windows. How do you do that? And that's where all this master communication comes in. And it's so many subtle little things. Being a good salesman is not necessarily being a liar. It's not being a trickster. It's just understanding what's gonna make the person believe and understand what you say. If I walked in and said, would you like new windows? And they essentially said, no, we don't need new windows. Our windows look fine. I would say, but what about the security aspect? While looking at their 3-year-old child. And they'd sit there and go, oh, what do you mean security aspect? And then I talk about how we had the lock 5000, and their locks are easy to break, as if glass isn't glass, it's all the same anyway. And you'd end up selling the windows. You have to find the triggers in people. There's another thing people don't understand about me and my message. Sometimes I sit here and I say things that piss people off because that's how you trigger people to make action. I have often written emails or done videos, especially to men when I want to help men, to piss them off. You're a loser. You're a dumbass. Andrew, why do you mean? Because you're not going to go to the gym unless I tell you you're a fucking loser. And you are a loser, and I'm not lying to you. You are a loser. The emotional trigger you need to get up off that chair is the fact that you're not important, nobody cares who you are, any girl you're ever in love with I could take, and you're insignificant. And when you die, nobody's interested. That's your fault. You could have been something else. You did that. You failed. It has to be done. You have to be a master communicator. And sometimes that involves also insulting people. It's all a massive tapestry, but to answer your question, for the 20-year-old, he needs to become a master at communicating. But also to be a master at communicating, you also need experiences worth talking about. You have to live a life. You need a degree of wisdom, and wisdom doesn't always come with age, it comes with life lived. I had a guy message me, this is a long time ago when I used to reply to my own emails, too big now, but he said, I don't have any stories, my life's boring. I said, bro, where do you live? He said, Madrid. I said, bro, ride the train from Madrid to St. Petersburg. Ride the train from Madrid to Vladivostok. Do the Trans-Siberian Railway. It costs you like $300. He goes, oh, but what if I get robbed? Exactly! That's exactly the point! What if you get robbed? Now you have a story. Maybe you'll die, maybe you won't. But you have a story. Don't bring your watch. If you got a Rolex, no one wants to rob you anyway. Don't worry about it. You're a brokey. Get on the train. There has to be that degree of risk to even have a story, because when you have a story, then you can communicate the story. you can't be an empty vessel either. So when you say you're telling me how I build this 20-year-old into a super soldier. Yeah, he has to be a master communicator, but he also has to do things which are risky. Risk has value intrinsically linked to it, intrinsically. This is why people, when you do risky things, people want to hear the story. Your coolest stories involve risk. Something went wrong, this could have happened, I almost this, I made it out. Without these risks, you haven't got it. So I would say to the 20-year-old, do what I did, get in the cage, get in the ring. Knock someone out, get knocked out, train hard. Fighting will teach you everything you need to know about life. You'll learn everything about who you truly are. You'll learn if you're a coward or not. You'll learn everything about perseverance and hard work and dedication, everything about being underappreciated. You learn everything about fear. You learn all of it. You learn everything about people. You win a fight, check your phone. Lose a fight, check your phone. You learn all about people. You learn all about them. You learn all about women. I learned so much about women through fighting. When I had a fight coming up and I was waiting